Mr. Speaker, thank you. I rise to present to this House and the Guyanese public my views on Budget 2025, which the Senior Minister with responsibility for finance, Dr. Ashni Singh, presented with great flourish and fanfare under the theme Sustainability, Improving the Lives of Guyanese. A national budget which has elicited a wide range of reactions. As was expected, Budget 2025 revealed the biggest, most ambitious plan envisioned by the government. But to my mind, biggest is not necessarily the best. For against the backdrop of the business sector applauding the high percentage of capital investments and the country labeled as the fastest growing economy in the world, others are gravely concerned about the reduction of inequality and the creation of an enabling environment for small businesses to thrive. Further, juxtaposed with the unparalleled spending spree cushioned in this $1.3 trillion budget are some 48% of persons living in poverty, agonizing over how soon they will receive the next paycheck, as well as the $100,000 promised last year to temporarily fill their empty purses while they will be remembered, and whether they will be remembered in any further distribution to improve their desperate indigent situation. Honorable Minister, Ms. Rodriguez of Linden, Vanessa of Jacklow Village, Bacchus of Alboystown, Dave and Gadjari of East Bank Berbice, Savitri and Devanan of Parika, and many others from all across the country are looking for a phone number to contact Mr. Azruddin Mohammed to address their dire needs. That, Mr. Speaker, is the reality. Budget 2025 is putting a large bandage over a festering sore. This purulent sore to which I am alluding is the inescapable poverty besetting some 50% of our nation. And I want to elaborate, Mr. Speaker, on the stranglehold in which the ordinary people of Guyana are caught and which Budget 2025 has not effectively and adequately addressed. Poverty and measures, old age pension. Mr. Speaker, Budget 2025 has provided old age pensioners with a $5,000 monthly increase and public assistance recipients $3,000, which are commendable. But it is well known that this will have little to no effect on the lives of many of our pensioners, especially those who have no other source of income. The cost of living is exorbitant, and so are healthcare costs and other miscellaneous expenses, which daily encumber the pockets of our elderly. Budget 2025 is themed Improving the Lives of Guyanese, but alas, Honorable Minister, the well-being of our pensioners is being eroded as they grapple with the stark realities of not having enough to offset the tentacles of poverty. Perhaps subsidized housing for the very poor and the $50,000 that was promised in 2020 need to be a consideration given prevailing circumstances. Mr. Speaker, I also wish to highlight the pensioners at age 55, whose situation is just as dire. For those unable to benefit from a post-work pension scheme, the wait until 65 for old age benefits is a harrowing experience, hence the pursuit of odd jobs, risky at times to make ends meet. If perchance their NIS fell short of the required number of contributions, they then have to manage the one-off payment until 65 years. How do they deal with severe health conditions rife at this age? I speak of stroke, diabetes, cardiovascular, and mental health issues, among others. Mr. Speaker, the situation is alarming. Their needs and the root causes of persistent poverty must be strategically embraced if the ordinary people are to really enjoy the benefits of the fastest growing economy. We all welcome cash grants, but that is not the answer to transforming the lives of our citizens. NIS. Each year, Mr. Speaker, many pensioners have their hopes dashed after working for many years and planning on receiving both NIS and old age pensions to eke out post-work existence. They are left on the hopeless bench. The National Insurance Scheme's yearly reports starkly relate this story. A quick scan for the years 2019 through 2022, revealed that some 4,403 pensioners, or a yearly average of 1,100 of hopefuls, were denied pension benefits. Hence, their plans of surviving on the two pensions never materialized. In 2019, some 1,170 pensioners, 2020, 979, 2021, 846, and in 2022, 1,408 persons who reached the age of 60 were left to the mercies of the unknown for the next 5 years until they became eligible for old age pension at age 65. Efforts must be made targeted at bridging the gaps for those pensioners. Noted, Mr. Speaker, is the 10 billion allocation to provide grants for those persons with 500 to 749 contributions. However, this proposal is already incorporated in the NIS Act, which makes provision for such grants. Is this then an oversight? Mr. Speaker, none of the 17 SDGs explicitly mention older people, but several goals and targets directly and indirectly speaks to their needs and rights. These include poverty, goal number 1. Older people often face economic insecurity due to inadequate pensions or lack of income. Yet at NIS, those who did not qualify for survival benefit averaged 700 persons each year for the last 4 years, not to mention thousands of persons who appeal to the board every year. Zero hunger, goal number 2. Ensuring access to nutritious food for older people is essential, particularly for those living in poverty or rural areas. Mr. Speaker, goals 3, 5, 8, 10, 11, and 17 all speak of the need to ensure that older people are included in achieving these goals. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, given our windfall of oil revenues, the time has come for us to implement comprehensive reforms and look at added programs and areas such as hot meals, especially in rural areas, increasing mental health, geriatric care through home visits by health personnel, decent pay and working conditions for those still employed, accessible housing and transportation, protection of their rights, all these and more to improve the livelihood of our pensioners. So, Mr. Minister, your one-off elections injection will not suffice. The scheme must demonstrate a willingness to go after employers, both private and public, who fail to honor employees' contributions and visualize mechanisms and structural reforms that will impact positively on the entitlements of pensioners. The scheme has had challenges whereby this very government lost approximately 5.7 billion Guyana dollars or 28 million US dollars to the CLICO investment. However, the oil proceeds now provide a unique opportunity for the scheme's framework to be revamped to allow for the enhancement of benefits for all pensioners. Newborn cash grant. Mr. Speaker, 100,000 cash grant for newborns, while seemingly generous, falls short of effectively addressing poverty or serving as a meaningful safety net for several reasons, particularly in the context of a stagnant population growth rate and declining crude birth rate. Offering a cash grant does little to address the root causes of declining birth rates, high cost of living expenditure, lack of work-life balance, or adequate child support. In reality, this only offers temporary relief in an election year, rather than long-term stability and sustainability. Mr. Speaker, while substantial on paper, this cash grant represents a mere fraction of what a family will need over decades to adequately support a child, Pampers, baby formula, health care, among other items. Sir, studies have shown that one, declining crude birth rates are linked to broader socioeconomic factors, such as job security, affordable child care, housing costs, and gender equality in the workplace. Certainly, a one-time elections cash grant does not address these systemic issues. Two, in countries where similar pro-natalist policies, financial incentives alone rarely lead to significant increases in birth rates, especially when broader societal challenges, such as receiving child support from one of the parents, remain unaddressed. Mr. Speaker, I trust the government will review its approach to addressing our stagnant population growth and declining birth rates by adapting some comprehensive policies that tackle systemic issues such as subsidized child care, and I speak here of both daycare and night care, affordable housing for single parents, ensuring that parents pay their child support, removal or reduction of the VAT, among others. Mr. Speaker, perhaps the Honorable Minister can share with us the study or studies which guided this measure. Sir, we can look at several countries which encounter similar problems, like France, which offers family allowance, tax breaks for families with more children, subsidized child care, paid parental leave for both parents. South Korea looks at families with a large number of children. Singapore subsidized fertility treatments, among many others. Certainly, we can look at various successful programs tried and tested by many countries and introduce 2 or 3 of these programs which will result in the growth of our population. Economic and oil reserves. In 2024, Guyana's economy experienced a remarkable growth of 43.6%, marking the 5th consecutive year of double-digit expansion. This surge was primarily driven by the oil sector, which expanded by 57.7%, with production averaging 616,000 barrels per day. The government earned $2.5 billion in revenues from oil exports, a significant increase from $1.62 billion in 2023. However, Mr. Speaker, Despite these impressive figures, many have expressed concerns that the 2025 budget does not translate this economic prosperity into meaningful improvements for the lives of the general population. According to the World Bank, 48% of our population, we're speaking of approximately 384,000 Guyanese of our approximately 800,000 population. Value-added tax. Despite various arguments put forward, sir, that reducing or removing the VAT imposed by this government in 2007 would lessen the financial burdens on all citizens, especially those struggling with a high cost of living. To date, this has not materialized. Hence, the government has missed an opportunity to provide a broader relief to the mass underprivileged in our country. I call on the government to remove VAT on all food items. This is not a partisan issue. This is an issue of survival for the people of Guyana. And we on this side of the House will give our full support. Labor. Mr. Speaker, all governments know of the importance of aligning educational programs with market demands. On page 74, para 4.196 and 197, the Honorable Minister spoke of the government's commitment to training Guyanese to access local content. He said, and I quote, "Attention to labor market dynamics is consistently on the front burner for us policymakers." End of quote. Mr. Speaker, last year the minister told the nation the same thing on page 106 of his budget presentation. Yet, sir, the Honorable Minister cannot provide this House with the labor force surveys for 2021, 2022, 2023, nor 2024. As a matter of fact, the last labor force survey was done in 2020. At page 29, para 4.24, the Honorable Minister speaks of training Guyanese at every level. Nice talk, Mr. Minister. But with the absence of a labor force survey, I must ask, what source of data are you using to identify areas of training and number of persons to be trained? Which category of workers? What age groups? With skills? Whom are you targeting? The employed for their second jobs to whom you alluded in your income tax measures, or the unemployed? Perhaps the minister had a needs assessment done. Where is the data, Honorable Minister? You also spoke of important skilled labor. May I ask, what is guiding this policy? How do you know whom to import in the absence of the labor force survey? Mr. Speaker, the government cannot on its own achieve the turnaround in the training of our employed and unemployed. What the government needs to do is, one, provide more financial support, grants for small and medium-sized enterprises, to encourage entrepreneurship and job creation. Provide tax incentives to Guyanese employers that hire locally and invest in employee training. Bridge the gap between education and employment by targeting our youths into internships and apprenticeships with a cost of living stipend attached. Ensure our labor laws are updated to protect workers' rights while promoting flexible employment. They can also provide unemployment benefits linked to training and retraining. They can lastly encourage Guyanese expatriates to return by providing incentives. And what about reviewing the retirement age at 55 years from the public service, Honorable Minister? Correct. Once again, Mr. Speaker, Guyana has many countries we can learn from, such as Singapore, Germany, Costa Rica, Netherlands, the USA, and our own neighbor Brazil, to name a few. Sir, it is my hope that a part of this abundance of earnings will be used to create a human infrastructure to bequeath to our nation, to our generations, a country that can sustain itself. Transparency and accountability. Mr. Speaker, beyond specific fiscal measures, there are broader concerns about the budget's transparency and the equitable distribution of the nation's oil wealth. I wish to reiterate that despite the significant revenues generated from oil, citizens have yet to experience the lofty improvements in services and general well-being. Services such as issuance of passports. Why must person have to go to the passport office at 3 a.m. in the morning? Birth and death certificate, burial, garbage disposal and collection, encashment of NIS and old age vouchers, transportation, hospital service, such as the availability of beds, drugs, and medical supplies, among others. Further, Mr. Speaker, despite the acclaimed lofty reform of the financial sector, yet the risk at the banks persists for the ordinary Guyanese who resort to Facebook to express frustration when monies are withdrawn with no proper accountability from their personal accounts. Imagine the dismay of a pensioner who last December went to do a withdrawal transaction only to be told of the negligible amount remaining in her account. The account had been breached and used for online shopping at Macy's and Burberry's. Sir, even foreign transactions are also difficult to conduct. Lack of foreign currency or sums required are not readily available. We see a lot of it in the newspapers. Mr. Speaker, when the Honorable Minister tells us that they have spent the monies passed in the budget, he boasts of spending more than 90% of the monies allocated, but it is all a misappropriation of the truth. What is known and recorded is that this government encourages ministries and agencies to withhold monies at the end of the year in the form of checks instead of returning them to the consolidated fund as outlined in Section 43 of the Financial Management and Accountability Act of 2003. For example, for 3 years, 2021 through 2023, they withheld some $3.439 billion. In 2021, $623.4 million. 2022, $352.6 million. And in 2023, $2,463 million were all withheld. Sir, the holy, sanctimonious, and expropriators are well known over the past 32 years in government for their network contracting. I know they will not want me to tell the Guyanese public about their overpayments to contractors of $153.23 million. And the lack of transparency continues. In an interview in August 2020 on the program group Span 24/7 with hosts Dr. Asquith Rose and Charles Sugrim, the Honorable Dr. Anthony said that, and I quote, "The ministry inherited approximately 1.6 million expired items valued $742 million. And an additional $200 million in items was projected to expire in December 2020. End of quote. When I was asked for a comment on Honorable Anthony's statement by Dr. Rose, I said, and I quote, "Time will tell," end of quote. Well, Mr. Speaker, time has spoken. So let's look at the wastage. The Auditor General said that for the period January 2022 to June 2024, just 2.5 years, Guyana threw away some $5.974 billion in expired drugs. In 4 months, sir, between January to April 2022, $413.3 million were thrown away. For the year 2023, $1,306,000 were thrown away. From January to June, 6 months in 2024, that's last year, my boy uppy game to $1.923 billion, 6 months. And sir, at June, that's very June, they had on hand for disposal $2.332 billion. Mr. Speaker, when we add overpayments and disposable drugs, some $9.413 billion wasted, gone to friends, families, and favorites, while 48% of Guyanese in our midst are not even allowed to dream. Mind you, sir, this amount of $9.413 billion only represents 2 areas of the entire budget. I'm calling for investments in drugs and medical supplies to be quantified and managed correctly. It is my hope, sir, that we will see some expedient action in the area of digitalizing the health sector systems, which we heard of since 2023. In the interim, however, sir, the Honorable Minister Anthony may want to use artificial intelligence, AI, like the United States of America, the United Kingdom, Spain, Italy, and endorsed by the World Health Organization, WHO, which can provide data faster and more accurately. But do something to stop this leakage. Mr. Speaker, what has happened to the glorious promise to the Guyanese people of promoting good governance, including openness, transparency, and commitment to improve public accountability? Mr. Speaker, I have had cause to rise in the House to ask you to have several members on the government side produce the evidence of the coalition government raising 200 taxes while in office. A few days ago, I heard the Honorable Minister Waldron mention of how unconscionable the coalition government was, that they raised Huskers taxes. Well, Minister Waldron, I have news for you. You can refer to page 41 of the 1993 PPP budget, Reconstruction for Human Development, section 6.19. And I'm not giving you all the other taxes, but it speaks of the government levying fees and penalties on the following: Weights and Measures Act, Miscellaneous License Act, Coconut Producers Act, Rice Factories Act, Consumption Tax Act, Customs Act, Spirits Act, Beer Regulation, Fisheries, and Huskers License and Control Act, Banking, Petroleum. Oh my God. Betting, road traffic vehicles, airport departure tax, tax on airlines tickets, professional fees tax, revenue stamp tax on passports, and the list goes on and on and on. I also refer her to Budget 1994 and Budget 1995. Mr. Speaker, Matthew 13:25 says, And I quote, "But while men slept, his enemy came and sowed tares among the wheat and went his way." End of quote. A perusal of the estimates begs more question of this 2025 budget. Figures. Looking at two subheads, one, other goods and services, and other operating costs, the line items 6284 others and 6294 respectively tells a grim story about budget 2025. For example, sir, under the Ministry of Education, we see an increase of $321.6 million and $1,021 million. The Ministry of Local Government under Program 134, we see an increase of $300 million. Mr. Speaker, the Ministry of Finance is not to be left out. Just taking two programs for them, Program 031 and 032, we see under the line items others 6284 and 6294, a $400 million increase. Under the presidency, Program 011 and 013, we see in line item 6294, $186 million increase. Mr. Speaker, what are the ministries doing to cause an increase under these broad line items of over $2.3 billion? Guyanese people need to wake up. Wake up, fellow Guyanese. We are being attacked from within. Here is the proof, Mr. Speaker. This budget is an elections campaign fund. What more evidence is needed? Mr. Speaker, this budget is rife with slush funds, dollars for elections and campaigns. Mr. Speaker, throughout his remarks, former Minister Jordan repeatedly called for transparency and accountability in government spending to good effect. He highlighted the lack of detailed reporting on oil revenue and use and the absence of feasibility studies for large-scale projects. His question, where is the plan? We're asking you, Mr. Minister, where is the plan? Where is the vision? Revert.
Honorable members, you pause. We are at the point where you have to get an extension.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, I move that the honorable member be given 5 minutes to conclude our presentation.
Thank you, Chief Whip. Honorable member, you may continue to conclude.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. He urged the government to prioritize long-term development over short-term political gains. Former Minister Jordan further called for a comprehensive social safety net that includes revamped NIS benefits, structured cash transfer programs, and sustainable poverty reduction measures. He warned that without such reforms, the country's current trajectory would be unsustainable. Did you hear him? Value-added products. Mr. Speaker, value-added products is one way in which we can have sustainable growth and less dependence on oil. This is the view held by many, including His Excellency the President and the Honorable Minister of Finance. Yet, sir, we do not see the government investing our monies nor making bold steps to open up this sector. So I refer to financing, concessions for those who wish to invest in things like cosmetics, rice-based products, things like noodles, snacks, or flour, I talk about those who want to invest in floor tiles from our wood or various types of tiles from our clay or aluminum, just to name a few. The Honorable Minister said that the manufacturing sector increased by 13% in 2024, and auto manufacturing increased by 15.7%. Mr. Speaker, he went on to say that this growth was driven by non-metallic and fabricated metal products, but in reality, those were for the oil sector. We have invested $527.4 million in 2024 in the agro-processing sector, but we are not aware of the total value of the products processed and sold both locally and overseas. In this budget, we are told there will be a further investment of $800 million. There are many Anansi stories, sir. Many Anansi stories. Mr. Speaker, last year on page 3, para 4, the Honorable Minister told this House there were 2 large-scale investments totaling some 250,000 hectares for production and value added in the forestry sector. Yet in Budget 2025, there is not one single word about this great investment. Yet again on page 31, para 4.38, in this budget, he speaks of the manganese company and its creation of 300 new jobs in Region 1, benefiting residents of Arakaka, Matthews Ridge, and Port Kaitumo. The Honorable Minister speaks as though this investment was done under this government. But I have news for you, for I hold in my hand a press release dated January 25, 2017, titled, Minister of Natural Resources approves agreement between Bosai Minerals and Reunion Gold Corporation, manganese project aiming for as many as 400 permanent workers. End of quote. Mr. Speaker, I rest my case. I wish to thank all those who contributed towards the production of the 2025 budget. May God have mercy on the Guyanese people.